The probe didn't send back the colony, it sent back us. The exact recording of our fleet leaving orbit 40 years ago played through the dark like a wound reopening. I was the one on shift when it arrived. I heard my own commander's voice say the word we'd all said that night: Godspeed. You have to understand what we were chasing. Kepler's Reach was our farthest child, a colony of 9,000, 11 light years out, transmitting home every dawn for a century. Then, one morning, nothing. No distress code, no failing carrier wave, just a clean, total silence, as if a hand had closed over a mouth. We told ourselves silence proves nothing. Transmitters fail. Antennas drift out of alignment across years no one is there to correct. A reactor decays. Absence of signal is not absence of life. I said that sentence in a dozen briefings and I almost believed it. Almost, because a whole colony does not go quiet by accident. So we built the probe, a single autonomous vessel, no crew to risk, smart enough to decide for itself what mattered once it arrived. It would need to. At 11 light years, we couldn't steer it. Any command we sent would take 11 years to reach it, and its answer, 11 more to come home. We were sending our eyes into a place we could not follow. That delay is the thing everyone forgets. Light is fast, but the universe is patient. Every image we'd ever seen of Kepler's Reach was already 11 years stale on arrival. We were never watching the colony. We were watching its past, a ghost of light, always arriving late, always showing us a moment that had already ended. The probe took 20 years to cross the gap. I grew older waiting for it. My hair went gray in that operations room. My commander retired, new faces came, learned the story, called it a legend before they'd lived it. And then, right on schedule, the probe reached orbit around Kepler's Reach and did the one thing we didn't expect. It went silent too. 3 days. For 3 days, the probe sat above that colony and sent nothing. No telemetry, no imagery, no reason. The room barely breathed. We thought we'd lost it, the way we'd lost them. That the planet swallowed everything that came close, and then a single transmission opened, one stored recording, downlinked clean. We expected the surface. Ruins, maybe. Empty streets. A frozen reactor. Some evidence to grieve over. What came through the speakers instead stopped my heart mid-beat. Voices. Our voices. The launch chatter from the night the colony fleet first left Earth, 130 years ago, before any of us drew breath. It was the departure broadcast. The colonists' own goodbye. The message they'd beamed back to Earth as their ship slipped away toward Kepler's Reach. Every name in the crew roll, the countdown, the cheer. And that final word, Godspeed, spoken by a captain who'd been dust for a century. The probe had traveled 20 years to hand us back our own farewell. The first thing that broke me wasn't the words, it was the quality. A signal that old, crossing that distance, should arrive as a whisper drowned in static. The inverse square law shreds everything, spreads it thin across the dark. But this was pristine, sharp, amplified. Something out there hadn't just reflected our goodbye. Something had rebroadcast it. Then the engineers found the Doppler shift. The recording's frequency was bent, stretched by real motion. Proof it had physically traveled, bounced off something moving, and come back. This wasn't a memory. It wasn't the probe glitching or an old signal drifting past. It was a message, aimed. Someone, or something, on that silent world had chosen these words and sent them home. And buried in the carrier was a timestamp. The rebroadcast hadn't been assembled after the colony fell silent. It was already looping, already answering, years before we ever lost contact. Before the silence began, Kepler's Reach was already sending back the sound of us leaving, as if the ending had been playing all along and we just hadn't listened. That's what hollowed me out. We asked a simple question, what happened to you? And across 11 light years, across 20 years of waiting, the answer we got was the moment they left. Not what they built, not what they became, not how they died, only the goodbye. Everything in between, every year those 9,000 people lived, was gone from the record. We built the probe to think for itself, to sift a whole world and decide what mattered enough to send. It had 3 days of silence to look at everything down there, and of everything it saw, this is what it judged we needed to hear. Not the planet, us, leaving. The machine looked at the colony's fate and answered with our own departure. A young analyst, born decades after launch, turned to me white-faced and asked the question none of us wanted spoken. What if they never went silent to us? What if they went silent to themselves? What if the colony didn't fall, but folded inward, and the only thing left running out there was a loop of the last real thing that ever happened to them? Arrival. And before that, us leaving. We argued for weeks about what it meant. Some said warning, that they wanted us to remember hope, the moment before whatever came, and to never follow. Some said farewell. One last dignified signal from people who knew they were ending, and some said neither. That it was simply a machine repeating the last instruction it understood, forever, into a sky no one answered. Against every protocol, I sent a message back. I know it was pointless. My words would take 11 years to arrive at a world that answered only in echoes, but I couldn't leave it unanswered. I recorded 3 sentences into the dark. We heard you. We're still here. What happened to you? And then I waited, the way I'd waited my whole life. The probe never sent again. Whatever it had come to say, it had said. Its telemetry flatlined to a carrier hum, a heartbeat with no message behind it, still orbiting that quiet world. We don't know if it broke, or shut itself down, or simply decided there was nothing left worth the crossing. It just kept circling, watching, silent, like them. But the recording stayed with us. We played it in the empty hours, that century-old cheer, those names, that final Godspeed. It stopped feeling like data. It started feeling like a message meant for exactly this moment, as if they'd known that one day we would ask, and this was the only honest answer the universe would give. You want to know what became of us? Here is what you did. You let us go. In the end, we closed the project. No second probe, no expedition. Some doors, once you hear what's behind them, you stop wanting to open. The official record calls Kepler's reach a loss of signal, cause unknown. But those of us in that room know it wasn't a loss, it was a reply, a precise, deliberate, impossible reply. And here is the part I can't set down. A signal doesn't die. It weakens, it spreads, but it keeps traveling outward forever. Which means that goodbye is still going. Past us now, past the probe, out into deeper dark. Our own departure racing ahead of us towards stars we'll never reach, announcing to everything out there that we were here and that we left. So when I look up now, I don't wonder what happened to them anymore. I wonder if somewhere out there, right this moment, something is listening to us leave. The same way we listen to them. A recording of a goodbye, crossing the dark, arriving late, showing a past that already ended. We asked the universe what became of the silent colony. It answered with the sound of us abandoning the question. Was it a warning? Or a farewell? Or a loop that started before we ever launched? I don't know. Maybe those are the same thing. But if you ever hear your own voice come back to you across the dark, clean and clear, and carrying a goodbye you don't remember saying, don't answer it. Just listen and ask yourself which of you is really the echo.